Bakul mentioned the memo of understanding between the FDA and FCC that was signed with great fanfare at that FDA-FCC communications related interoperable workshop. I took part in that remotely last year. Can you give us a little bit more sense of where that memo of understanding and collaboration has come since then, and where you think it's going to be going to try to align, the concerns that the two agencies have, which are obviously different kinds of concerns?
Can you hear the question?
I think I got it. I think the person was asking what's the update after the workshop we had. Is that correct?
Yeah, the collaboration between FDA and FCC and where that stands now.
So the collaboration between the
collaboration with FCC on a regular basis. What we have established everything after that MOU has been put in place is to exchange ideas and exchange approaches on regulatory perspective. And we meet frequently. Actually, there's a set schedule every 2 months, 3 months we meet to talk about the different efforts from both ends. And if you have, I don't know if you're following FCC or not, but there are various rules and proposals that went out of FCC which had FDA input into that, and you can actually find those rules. One of the things that we talked about, or FCC talked about late last year, was about testbed and experimental licensing. I think we had a very collaborative effort in terms of actually reviewing that rule and actually providing input to that rule as we move forward. And I think that's the first of a kind that has happened in a long time, where two agencies are actually collaborating and actually proposing it. Because within an option, and even though it came out of FCC, with an FCC jurisdiction in it for experimental licensing and allowing folks to experiment with a license with some common understanding. So I think that was a real, if you attended or heard about the West Wireless meeting which happened earlier this year, FDA is proposing and looking at exploring options to do something similar when medical devices are exposed to patients for experimentation. It's somewhere in between IDE or proprietary IDE. We're trying to figure out if that's even useful. We are looking very active at trying to determine what's the next step. What should we do to help people innovate in this area while maintaining the safety? So not just having folks do the experimental licensing, using the experimental licensing make products, and from an RF perspective, but also looking at how can we help gather data, gather understanding of how these devices could work in an interoperable clinical environment. That's something that we're exploring as well. So that's sort of what has happened until last month, and we continue to follow on that path.
One last question in the back there.
A couple of days ago, I read this quote, and I have to share with you. 19th century life was influenced by novel, 20th century by film, and 21st century by interface. We have been talking a lot about interoperability since yesterday. So my question goes for Clint, that Qualcomm has been a settler to a lot of different wireless technology. Why is there so much push on low power Bluetooth technology, whereas like whenever we talk about collecting different sensor data, it's always about SIG or ANT, or Wi-Fi is also widely used. That is my question to Clint. And the second question to Bakul, that Aaron has been talking about different app-based medical devices to collect the data from different sensors. How FDA is prepared for that kind of a development for the future? Thank you.
Shall we start with Clint?
Sure. For biometric sensors on body, Wi-Fi is too power hungry. That's the biggest problem there. And as far as ANT goes, ANT did not have the privacy and security built in. So again, when we looked at Bluetooth, It was ubiquitous in all phones, so we chose Bluetooth as the first radio, but we had to build a profile. So Continua designed a profile, gave that back to the Bluetooth SIG. And then the Bluetooth SIG, when they built Bluetooth Low Energy, realized that they needed to improve pairing, security, and privacy. So that's why Bluetooth Low Energy is going to be a good choice going forward. It'll be in all phones, and by definition, right out of the gate, it'll be Continua compliant.
There was, just to add to that, there was an example last year of some researchers, I believe from MIT, that did a demonstration of wirelessly accessing a pacemaker device. And so I think that's a very hands-on example that goes to show you exactly why the security implementation and things like low-power Bluetooth are important.
So I'll answer the last question the gentleman asked about, I'm not sure I got the question right, but I'm going to take a crack at it. Is the question related to how would sensors being incorporated with mobile phones and other wireless technologies going to be affecting FDA's regulatory approach? Is that the question?
Yes. Yes.
So the answer is yes. Okay. So sensors and transducers incorporated into medical technology is not something new for the agency. I mean, if you look at traditional electrodes that go on an ECG machine, those are already sensors that are remote, and they may be wired today, but tomorrow they could be wireless, and I think that's a fine thing to have. Some of the safety considerations may vary a little bit, but not tremendously different than what we used to have in the past. The technology is changing. I think what's important to sort of take away from this is not just the technology is changing, but the business models are changing, where folks at home can put together multiple transducers and hook into a home computer. And I'm using the home computer on purpose because that could be a cell phone, which is a computer, or it could be a PDA, which is a computer, and by software given by some fourth party. I think that's the challenge of how we focus our regulatory effort, and then ultimately put together or connected together is still safe.
Okay, we're going to have to wrap up. We're running out of time, so I'm sure all of the panelists will be around if you have further questions to ask. So I'd like to thank you all for coming, and I'd like to thank our panelists for joining us this morning. Thank you.